Have you had your flu shot this year? This seemingly innocent question is asked every day in this country, and it now leads to questioning whether parents will vaccinate their children. My parents made the decision to have me vaccinated as a child, and after examining the evidence, I agree with their decision and will have my future children vaccinated as well. There is a lot of false information regarding vaccines. The more parents who refuse to vaccinate their children, the more the public health will suffer. The paranoia behind immunization must be changed if we are to preserve the health of every citizen in this country. First, let's discuss how vaccines work and address the dangers of anti-vaccination. According to vaccines.gov, vaccines work with the body's built-in defenses to fight diseases. They are composed of weak or dead germs. When the body comes into contact with a disease, it can take days or even weeks for the body to mount an immune response. In that time, symptoms will manifest and weaken your body. A vaccine works to train your body's immune system to fight off the disease. If the person has been vaccinated, their body will respond faster and before any symptoms manifest. Vaccines prevent over 20 different diseases and prevents 2 to 3 million deaths per year, according to the World Health Organization's article, Vaccines and Immunizations. Here we have, it's a little hard to see, but first we have some of the diseases that it protects against. The first is the flu, which is a respiratory illness, and it can be deadly to the very old and the very young. The next is whooping cough, which it can be deadly to babies and causes uncontrollable coughing. The next is chickenpox, which almost all of us have had, and is characterized by those itchy blisters and fever. Next is measles, which is a very serious illness for small children and can be fatal. Symptoms include a fever, inflamed eyes, and a skin rash. And the last is polio. It attacks the brain and the spinal cord and can cause paralysis, difficulty breathing, and death. Here is a statistic of exactly how well vaccines work. It's measles, mumps, and rubella, and polio. Now, to the left is what happens before a vaccine. The dotted line is the year that the vaccine was able to be released, and after that is it shows how well the vaccine worked, eventually fighting the disease. Before a vaccine is recommended to the general public, it is tested for years in a lab. After approval by the FDA, each subsequent batch of the vaccine is tested for efficiency. Some side effects of vaccinations are mild fever, mild swelling, and some flu-like symptoms. But it is much more dangerous to refuse vaccination than it is to risk these mild symptoms. Many parents fear that vaccines cause autism, especially the MMR vaccine. The Center for Disease Control's article, Autism and Vaccines, makes it clear that there is no connection between childhood vaccination and autism. Vivian Chu of Harvard's article, To Vaccinate or Not to Vaccinate, Searching for a Verdict in the Vaccination Debate, goes on to say that many parents misunderstand the link between autism and vaccinations because autism is usually diagnosed between the ages of 2 and 3, which is when most childhood vaccines are also administered. These previous facts have all addressed the worries of individuals, but there is another aspect to vaccines that I wish to briefly address. Herd immunity is when a majority of the public is vaccinated, and it protects every citizen, even those unable to be vaccinated. The decision to vaccinate may seem like an individual choice with individual consequences, when in reality it can have consequences for the public health also. Secondly, let's discuss some realistic ways that we can combat the anti-vaccination problem. The first thing that I would implement to combat this problem is a strong public health program, which would separate fact from fiction. With all the false information out in the world, it is paramount that the facts are given to parents and adults alike. It is very important that everyone understands the dangers of not being vaccinated. As Michelle Goulimard writes in her article, Addressing Vaccine Hesitancy in Writing, fear can be a strong motivator for change, and that strategy has worked in other public health interventions. Also in this public health program would be monetary rewards for those who received vaccinations. Since there was such rampant misuse of the COVID relief money, I believe it would be better to give out gas cards or grocery store credit cards. If, after implementing this public health program and there is no change, or the herd immunity numbers are at a high risk level to the public, then I believe that it is time that we must implement a mandatory vaccination law. I understand that this will be horrifying to many people, but we must put the health of society above our own beliefs. It would not be the intention of this law to take away any freedoms, but to protect the vulnerable of our society, the very young, the very old, pregnant women, and the immunocompromised. Vaccines are a low-risk and high-reward healthcare decision. The decision to vaccinate can not only have consequences for you as an individual, but consequences for the public health. This is one healthcare decision that no citizen can escape from. Now that you know the facts, you must decide whether protecting yourself, your family, and the public is more or less important than the minimal risk you take with vaccinations. Chu's article sums up this argument nicely. Many questions in science and medicine are confusing and frustrating, but fortunately, vaccines are not one of them. Because for vaccines, the verdict is already in. Guilty of being safe, effective, powerful, and highly recommended. Get vaccinated if you haven't already. The lives of you, your family, and the most vulnerable of our society depend upon it.